You know, I keep meaning to slow down and take a break, but this stuff keeps happening. I really thought I was done talking about Ghost in the Shell until it actually was going to come out and we actually knew what the thing was. But they did. Okay, so there was released this sort of, I don't know, it's a little bit of a scene, it's a clip of Scarlett Johansson as the Major, you know, waking up in the artificial body for the first time, and she's being watched over by a doctor. We hear a bit of dialogue, and then we get some more, you know, some trailery stuff. We get a little bit of voiced over from the villain and from the Major and so forth. And I have been hanging on this thing by a thread up to this point. I had really been teetering on the edge of, do I actually want to go to the theater and see this? And at this point, the answer is no. I'm packing this off to the same place I packed Wonder Woman, which is that, barring really stellar reviews, and specifically from like hearing from people who I know, whose opinions I trust, and who understand where I'm coming from with my issues as to why I am very cautious and kind of don't want to see this, barring people assuring me that what I'm afraid of is going to be the case, I'm not going to this thing. So to just review and recap real quick, my initial concerns, if you go back to my earlier videos, what I thought was going to happen was that they were just going to copy and paste the 1995 anime film, and they weren't going to change anything, and that I didn't want to happen because that irritated the part of me that hates, you know, Disney remaking their animated classics in live action. I feel that it undermines the original because now they're making the real version when really all they've done is strip mine it and just do the exact same thing again. That's what I thought was gonna happen. Or I didn't think it, but that was my initial fear. That was my early videos on this thing going, I hope they don't do that. What we're seeing at this point doesn't indicate to me my initial fear, but it indicates something I didn't even think was gonna happen, which was an insane dumbing down of this film. And just at this point, it's not even boiling it down. It is taking the visuals of the original and sticking it on a template that has almost nothing to do with the original product. And this clip has solidified my opinion of that. Couple things, well, no, one major thing specifically. At this point, we had, again, they keep hammering the same thing. They didn't save your life, they stole it, which I've said repeatedly. I hate that line, and it really does seem like they're certainly hinging the marketing, and that to me says they're hinging the movie on this concept. And then they had the Major, it was a voiceover line, so it's possible it was an add-in. It might not appear in the film itself. It doesn't matter. If this is how they're marketing the movie, this is what I'm assuming the movie's gonna be. And they had her say, I will have my revenge. Fucking what? They're taking a story, and whatever version of the story you like, whether it is one of the series that was done, whether it was the films, the anime films that were done, whether it's the manga, they are taking this story and this concept that is steeped in heady ideas about identity, artificial intelligence, the future of humanity, the marrying of mind and machine, and they're turning it into a revenge story. Revenge has never been the point or the focus of this. You want to look at some of the various forms. A notion of revenge has popped up now and then, but it's never been the point. And it's rarely even been used as like a surface level motivation. She's not out for revenge. She's not out avenging her past. The whole thing, her character of the Major especially, it's about questioning what she is and what she could be and what she might be becoming, and then exploring that further. Revenge is all about looking back. It's about what you lost. It's about what was taken away from you. It is about avenging a past wrong. The idea that the Ghost in the Shell as a franchise is looking back instead of into the future is an absolute, just complete dropping the ball of the heart of this property. And then, as kind of a capper on this, let's talk about the fact that the Major got a name drop in this clip, which is Mera. And this brings back the whole whitewashing thing again. Now, I did a separate video on that as well, and at the time, in that video, I alluded to but didn't go into a lot of depth of the fact that certain people could, if they wanted, make a narrative argument for why it is okay that the Major was a Caucasian woman. I didn't go into detail at that point, but what I was alluding to is something that I've seen repeatedly a number of people bring up as a possibility for why casting Scarlett Johansson is not that big a deal. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with this argument, but the argument basically goes, because the story takes place in this cyberpunk future, and because the Major is in an artificial body, her race is only a reflection of the body she is in, and it is no way an indication of the race she was prior to becoming this physical form. Now, does that actually gloss over the issue that people who cry whitewashing are trying to point out, issues of, you know, representation and whatever? No, it absolutely doesn't. But that argument was one that people were still making. And the fact that it could be made basically allowed people who maybe were on the fence and felt a little awkward about it but still wanted to see the movie, it allowed them the sort of space that in their head canon to say, look, we don't know what she was, you know, before she was in this body. She could have been any nationality, now she just happens to be this. And to sort of square that circle a little bit for themselves, which I think for some people was just a way to try and allow them to see the movie without a lot of baggage. And up until this clip, and the name drop of Mira, they had the ability to do that. Mira is not a Japanese name. I actually even looked into to the roots of the name, and it's got a couple different origins because it comes from a couple different places. There's some Slavic roots, there's Latin roots, you know, Romance languages, Asian languages, Japanese, that whole region of the world, not on the list. Does that mean that an Asian woman can't be named Mira? No, of course not, but it really kind of takes the wind out of that argument, which means that from where I sit, the whitewashing thing is now a bigger, I'm not sure if it's a bigger issue. The issue, it always has been what it has been, but it's now a lot harder to defend than it was before. And I was shocked they even dropped a name. I had assumed that they would just call her the Major throughout the whole thing and never even, you know, say what her name was before that, because that would again have allowed for this wiggle room for this sort of people to make headcanons, people to make an argument. And again, not saying it was necessarily a valid argument, but there was at least room where somebody could make that, and people had been, and not now. I don't know if that name drop is actually going to renew, you know, the whitewashing accusations or whatever any more than they already were, but if for people who are still having that argument, the side that we're trying to say that it wasn't a big deal or maybe it was something else, they don't really have much of a leg to stand on anymore, and I think that puts the film in a weaker position, and it is one more thing to add to the pile of reasons why I don't want to see this. Now, like I said, I'm not saying definitively that I will never see this. What I'm saying right now is the movie, as I have come to understand it, based on the marketing, and again, you know, people can tell me all day long, you know, maybe they're just doing this to get butts in seats, and I accept that that's a possibility, but I'm not going to look at a piece of marketing and assume it's lying to me, unless it's coming from J.J. Abrams. I'm going to assume that what they show me is representative of the film, and I don't want what they're showing me at all. So where I sit right now, I'm not gonna pay money to see this movie. So it leaves one of two possibilities. If the reviews are stellar, and if when I dig into the substance of those reviews, it seems like the things I was afraid of are not the case, I will then go and give it a fair shot. If that doesn't happen, if the reviews are mediocre, or if the reviews are decent, but it does in fact look like all the things I'm afraid of were in fact done and are in fact the case, then you know, when it eventually turns up on Netflix or something and I can see it without having to pay money directly for that movie, yeah, maybe I'll catch it just so I can sort of know for myself if all my assumptions were correct. But I'm not paying theater prices based off my current understanding of what this movie is. So I want to say this is the last video I'm gonna make on this live action Ghost in the Shell, but you know what? I thought that about the last one, so I'm not gonna say that. I will say I would like this to be the last video that I have to make about this movie, but we'll see. So, Ghost in the Shell, latest clip. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you watch it and watch me talking about it and go, why is this a big deal? Whatever your thoughts were, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check me out on Twitter at Council of Geeks. Give a listen to the Council of Geeks podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher. And until next time, this council is adjourned.